Begin Self-Publishing, episode number 97. The Secrets of Facebook Live with Ian Anderson Gray.
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
Now, one of the big things that people have been talking about for about the last year and a half in the marketing world is live video. This is where, on a social media network, you can press a button and broadcast live to all your followers everything you're doing. Now, there are two big platforms that are doing this. Periscope, which is Twitter's live streaming platform, and Facebook Live. There are also a few other places you can do it as well, but those are the big two. In today's show, I talked to Ian Anderson Gray, who is a social media wizard when it comes to tooling and technical devices. And he's been doing an awful lot of Facebook Live broadcasting, both from his phone and from the desktop. Generally speaking, while it's possible to go live from the desktop just using Facebook Live now, you have to use some third-party software to do it. And Ian's done a great course on the free bit of software called OBS Studio that can do this. So that's why I decided to get him on the show today. Ironically, after the show was recorded, there's just been a new software package called Ecamm Live that's been released, which supposedly is very good for live streaming on Mac computers. But sadly, it's not available on PCs, so I won't be using it. I've also done a live streaming recording of my 100th episode. So if you're interested in seeing what happens in that show before it's released in 3 weeks' time, you can go to the Begin Self-Publishing Facebook page, and I've shared the original live stream onto that Facebook page. It was somebody else interviewing me for a change. So now over to the interview with Ian. Hi Ian, welcome to the show.
Hi Tim, it's great to be here.
So why is everybody very interested in live video now? And why use, say, Facebook Live rather than something like Periscope?
Well, yeah, good question. I mean, it is the big thing at the moment. And I think those of us in the marketing world can get a little bit excited, get our knickers in the twist about all these kind of new technologies that come our way. And I think asking the question why is always an important place to start. With live video, it's a way that we can get ourselves in front of the audience. And I hate to use this word, but I'm going to use it anyway. Show ourselves in a more authentic way. It's not an edited performance. It's a way of getting ourselves in front of people. And also, it enables people to ask questions and get involved and have access to you in particular. So I think there's a real power with the whole live video, the whole new live video thing at the moment. Now, you say, why Facebook over Periscope? And I think you need to look at your audience and see where your audience is. But I will say Facebook is massive when it comes to social networks. We all know that it is the biggest social network. And they are investing huge amounts of effort, time, and money into the Facebook Live platform. Now, I don't know whether your listeners will know much about the kind of the whole algorithm thing when it comes to posting on Facebook, but Facebook doesn't always kind of post your Facebook page posts to all of your fans. It chooses which of your posts will go to each of your fans, but depending on how popular your page is. But when it comes to Facebook Live, it gives your Facebook Live posts a bit more of a boost. So they will reach more of your fans if you're going live on your Facebook page. And so that is definitely another advantage in using live video on Facebook. And it also, I would say, compared to other platforms such as Periscope, I mean, Periscope is pretty easy, but Facebook Live is just really very easy to use, if you use your smartphone. But you can also do some really quite cool things if you add some extra technologies and tools and go live on your desktop as well.
Okay, this comes on to my next question. I've seen you go live on both your phone and from your desktop. In what situations would you recommend people use, say, the desktop or the phone? How do you make that choice yourself?
Well, I think it's always best to start on your phone because it's just so easy. You just pick up, if you've got an iPhone or an Android phone, you just pick up your phone, go to the Facebook app, and when you post a new post, you've got the option to do a live broadcast. So you just type your post in there and then click live, and you're then live. It's that easy. And I would always recommend just starting off that way. If you're a little bit scared about going live to everyone, which, let's be frank about that, I think most of us are the first time we do it, then you've also got the option to choose to only go live to yourself. So you can go live, no one's going to watch, and then you can watch it later. So you've got that option. So definitely try it on your phone first. But going live from your desktop gives you quite a few more extra options or extra features. So I think it can look a little bit more professional depending on your setup. So you can use your professional webcam, for example, and microphone. You can potentially bring guests in as well. That's one really cool thing. I know you can do that now from your phone. Facebook are slowly rolling out this new feature where you can bring in guests if you're going live to your profile, but there are far more options now on desktop. You can add your own branding as well, depending on what you're using to go live, but you can add some branding and share your screen. There's loads of options. I know somebody who goes live from their desktop and they actually use 4 webcams, microphones, mixer, and they go live every Monday evening with their band, and they do a live broadcast on Facebook Live, and they bring guests in on Skype, and they do some really cool things and get requests, ask for requests, and do a whole performance every Monday. So it's really quite cool what you can do on desktop.
Okay, so you mentioned screen shares there. How do you do like a screen share and these more fancy effects on Facebook Live? What software do you use?
Facebook are slowly rolling out the ability to go live just through the Facebook website. And I think they will be rolling out the option to do screen shares and to use your webcam. It's fairly basic at the moment. If you want to do more powerful things like sharing your screen and potentially, for example, what I do is I will share my screen, but I'll still have my webcam visible on the bottom, say, right or top right of the screen, so people can see my face while I'm demonstrating something. So there's a number of ways you can do that. Probably the easiest way is to use a web app called Crowdcast. It's not free. It's relatively expensive. I can't remember exactly how much it costs, but that is an ability to bring in guests, share your screen, and there's even a chat room, and you can get people to ask questions within that, and that also broadcasts to Facebook Live. There is also Zoom. So Zoom is a similar facility like Skype, allows you to talk to people remotely and video. And they also have a webinar feature, which costs an extra $40 on top. And that also allows you to broadcast to Facebook Live and allows you to share your screen. But I use one of 2 apps that enables me to do all of this. And one of them is called OBS Studio, which is completely free, which we always like. And then the other option is Wirecast, and that is the professional paid version, which is around $500. And with those tools, you can choose whichever one you want. Probably start off with OBS Studio because it's free. It enables you to broadcast your webcam. You can set up lots of different scenes. So your first scene could just be your webcam. Scene 2 could be your screen that you're sharing with your webcam. And you could bring in guests. For example, you could have a video chat with somebody on Skype, and that could be scene 3. And you can transition between all these scenes. You can basically create a whole kind of almost like a TV show with different scenes. And that is a really, really powerful setup. And that's what I use on my weekly live show.
So obviously you've done solo performances from the phone. You've done desktop ones. You've done doing a show with somebody else. What lessons have you learned from all these Facebook Live broadcasts that you've done?
I've learned a lot of lessons. I've made lots of mistakes, but I've also come across lots of potential issues. And the first thing I would say is expect things to go wrong because, sometimes it will go wrong. So you do need to test, and test again. Don't get complacent. One of my worst mistakes really is complacency because I'm just about to go live. I assume everything went well last week for my live show, so everything's going to go right this week. Try and go live, and it doesn't work. So a number of things to think about. The first thing is if you're going to go live, either from your desktop or from your phone, you do need to have a really fast internet connection. So on your phone, you need to be on a good Wi-Fi network. On desktop, If you can plug in directly to your internet connection, then I'd definitely recommend to do that. It's the upload speed that is the most important. So I recommend using an app called speedtest.net. You can download that on your phone, or you can go to the website, and that will test your internet speed. You need, really, ideally, you need to have an upload speed of 10 megabits per second. We're getting a bit technical here, but it's your upload speed that's the most important. But you can get away with 5 or possibly lower, but you are going to struggle with a decent quality if you're lower than 5 megabits per second. So that's the first thing that's really important. The second thing, particularly if you're going live on your desktop, make sure you've got a good microphone set up and you have good lighting, good webcam, and there are no kind of running children and noises in the background like I was struggling with earlier today before we did this recording. And the other thing to think about is, as well as the quality of the internet and your webcam and microphone, you do need to have, on a desktop at least, a really quite fast computer. So I just about coped on my 6-year-old Dell computer, but I was struggling a bit. And really, you need to have quite a fast processor and a lot of memory to go live on your desktop. And if you're on a phone, then you probably need to have good modern iPhone, maybe one that's 2 or 3 years old, or a modern Android phone, because otherwise you're going to struggle with the connection. And the resultant live broadcast is not going to be that great. The final thing I would say is make sure you have a plan before you go live. So be aware of people's time. You've got to make sure that you get straight to the point and address your replay viewers first is a good thing to do, because it'll take a few minutes before your live viewers join the broadcast. So welcome them, but then get straight to the point and don't waffle on. That's something that can, particularly if you're nervous, we can end up waffling on and the broadcast ends up being quite boring. So just be aware of that too.
So coming on to the fear of the camera thing, what is your top tip for people to get over that fear of appearing on camera?
Well, the first thing I'd say is don't feel that you are alone here. I'm always nervous before I go on, before a Facebook live broadcast or any kind of live broadcast or even a podcast interview such as this. It's good actually to have a bit of nervous energy. So that's the first thing I'd say. Don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. But then the other thing to do is, I mentioned this earlier, on Facebook, you've got the ability on your profile, on your smartphone app, it's particularly easy. Just go live to yourself. No one else will watch. And then, if you can, watch it back. If you're like most of us, you will not like the way it went. Most of us don't like looking at ourselves in a video. But try that out first. The second thing that you can do is go live just to your friends. And, your friends want you to do well. So you're going to be hopefully not as nervous as if you go public. So do that. But the best thing to do is to set aside maybe a week or 30 days even and give yourself a challenge. So, for example, you could do a live challenge where every day you are forcing yourself to go live. The first day could be just to yourself. The second day could be to your friends. The third day could be public. But you're having to do that every day. And that way, you just have to do it. And people are expecting you to do it. And don't worry if it goes wrong, because the great thing about live broadcasts is that it's live and people understand that. And if the worst comes to the worst, you can always delete it. I wouldn't, but you can delete the live post afterwards.
Would you say it's a good idea for those people who maybe are into paid advertising for them to actually promote their Facebook Lives after they've done them? Is that a good idea, or is that something you've considered doing?
Yeah, I think particularly if it's gone well.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to promote your disasters. But the great thing about live broadcast is that it's actually, once you get a rhythm for it and once you get into the groove, you can actually produce a live show relatively easily, because it's just a case of you talking, your guests talking, or if you're, whatever it is, it's just a case of producing that live. But the work doesn't finish there. Once it's gone live, I recommend making that live video and post an evergreen piece of content. So go in and edit the post. Maybe you could put in some show notes there. You could put in some times of when you're talking about certain things. So headings, and say, we're talking about this at 5 minutes, 30 seconds, so that people can go to that point. I quite often find that I get far more viewers watching it in the replay than I do when it's live, even months and months and months ahead. And you can do things like embedding that on your website and doing lots of things there. So yes, you've created this evergreen piece of content, and then why wouldn't you look at promoting that using Facebook ads? Because we all know how powerful they are. And over time, hopefully, if you're being regular with your live broadcasts, you will get more and more viewers watching you. Because the first time you go live, you're probably not going to get that many live viewers watching. But if you're regular and you're promoting it and you're producing really good content, then you're going to find that you are going to get far more people watching you live because they know they've got access to you and they can ask you questions live on air.
Okay, so talked about it slightly there, but what's your view in terms of people who say, well, they do live broadcasts just on a sort of ad hoc basics? So, like, say, Ian visited the chocolate factory and suddenly thought, I'll do a Facebook Live, as opposed to doing a, say, scheduled show where, like you do with Julia Bramble every week at a particular time. What's your kind of view on I'm doing something live just because I can versus like having a scheduled show?
Well, I wouldn't say it's wrong to do that. That's what I did to begin with. When I was trying to get used to the platform and the idea of going live, I did do it every now and again when I kind of felt like it. And yeah, by all means do that. But I think there are two advantages in scheduling that. Say if it's a weekly show, which is probably what I'd recommend, or maybe every 2 weeks or a couple of times a week. The first advantage is that you get used to doing it. It's amazing. You do it once and then you completely forget how to kind of set up the show the next time. So that's really important for you to get better. And you will, the first couple of broadcasts you do probably won't be amazing. Let's be frank, my first broadcasts were pretty poor, but I improved over time. I learned from my mistakes and I learned from what other people were saying. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and this is the same for a lot of pieces of content, whether it's a podcast or whether it's blog posts, you want to kind of teach people to expect the next one. So if they know that you're going live on a Monday at a particular time or whatever day, they will expect it the next time. And if you're kind of a bit sporadic, people won't know when you're next going to go live. So that is important. And on pages and profiles, you can actually schedule those broadcasts as well. So you can get people to sign up for your next show and be notified when you next go live. So that's another top tip. Just to be aware of, get people expecting your next show. Okay.
And I suppose the final topic is, how long should people be doing their Facebook Live broadcasts? Is there, in your opinion, an optimum length, or is it basically just however long you're thinking of talking for?
Oh, that's a hard one. I would say it depends. I know that's a bit of a cop-out answer, but I've seen some live broadcasts that have gone on for over an hour, and they've really kept their viewership. You can see, when you go live, you can actually see how many people are viewing at that one particular time, and it can go up and down. Hopefully you can gauge the interest level. If the numbers go down, you're probably starting to bore people. But the other thing to remember is that not everyone is going to watch for the whole thing. You'll get people that will probably bob in and bob out. And that's absolutely fine because, the thing about live broadcast is that, not everyone can stay for the whole, or some people might be doing something else. So you need to just be aware of that. And hopefully people will watch the replay later if you make it interesting. So I would say test it. I would say to begin with, maybe go for 5 to 10 minutes. Keep it simple for you. And then maybe try some longer ones as well. And just test it out and see what works for you, see what works for your viewers. And the only thing I would say in terms of the length, it does take some time for people to end up watching it. So they may be notified after a minute or two of you going live, but sometimes it will take them a little bit of time to kind of, they see your notification, but they're in the middle of something else. So they may end up joining 5 or 10 minutes later. And quite often I do this. I join just as the broadcast ends. And I found this with my live show with Julia Bramble, that quite often we try and keep it to about 25 minutes to 30 minutes. We try and keep it no longer than 30 minutes. But quite often we'll get people coming in live into the broadcast at 25 minutes or 30 minutes. And we're just saying, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. So maybe we'll experiment with slightly longer broadcasts as well. The main thing is just to test and see what works for you.
And there's another question that I think telepathically has come through from my listeners to me, which I suddenly thought, oh yeah, I've not really asked you this or addressed this. In terms of getting people to do something, so the call to action. So you've got this great live show, but you want presumably people to do something like buy a book or sign up to an email list or buy a course or do something. How do you go about doing the calls to actions on these live broadcasts?
Well, that's a good question. That comes back to the why are you doing it question. Why are you going to be doing this Facebook Live? And, for some people, it may just be for awareness, brand awareness. So in a sense, there isn't a call to action apart from watch us next week. So this comes down to the planning stage. You need to probably write out bullet points of what you're going to say in the broadcast. So I mentioned before, the first thing you should probably say is, welcome the replay viewers, because they're the people that will be watching it from the start of the video. Tell them what you're going to be talking about it in this video. But then you probably want to have a call to action right at the beginning, or at least say what they're going to get out of it and where they can go. So it depends on what it is, but I would say you probably need to have that call to action maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the broadcast. So maybe the beginning, middle, and the end. Certainly not everyone is going to be watching all the way through. So you probably want to have at the beginning, the middle, and the end. But you don't want to take people away from the broadcast either. So you could, if it's, for example, it may be an ebook that you want people to look at. So you could say, I'm going to be talking about this topic in today's live broadcast, and I'm going to be giving you access to a free ebook that's going to tell you about this. Stay to the end and I will give you that. I mean, if the broadcast is short, then you could get away with that. So, yeah, there's probably not I can't really give you a definite answer. It kind of depends on quite a few things, how long the broadcast is. But I would say just make sure that you plan what that call to action is and work out whether you want to give that middle, beginning, and end, or whether you at least want to mention it beginning, middle, and end. But where do you want people to go, and when are you going to say that within the broadcast?
Okay, so I think we've just about covered Facebook Live. How can people find out about Ian Anderson Gray and the things you do?
So probably the easiest place to go to is my website, which is iag.me. So that stands for Ian Anderson Gray, iag.me. And you can also find me on Twitter as well. So that's it, iagdotme. That's iag.me on Twitter.
Okay, I believe that you've got a Facebook Live course, haven't you?
I do, yes. So this is specifically I mentioned a tool called OBS Studio, and the OBS Studio is available for Mac and PC, and it gives you that ability to broadcast from your desktop to Facebook Live using your microphone, your webcam. You can bring in guests using Skype or Zoom, and that course specifically covers how to do that. And you can find that out just by going to my website. There's a big banner at the top that tells you where to go and find out more information on my Facebook Live course.
Okay, well, it's very good to have you on the show today, Ian.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.